Thank you, John Moran from NOAA Hawk Bay Lab. And next, we have Barbara Mahoney and Bonnie Easley-Appleyard from NOAA Fisheries share us with Barbara's question on dead or alive marine mammal best practices. And I get to thank Barb while she walks up here because we've never met, so it's nice to meet you, but we've talked a bunch on the phone and exchanged emails. Right. And I get to give a quick plug again to talk about that best management practices agreement that we're all so excited about. Lindsay mentioned what a collaborative effort it was, not only among tour operators and others, but among the agencies. So when you familiarize yourself with the best management practices agreement, Barb helped us engage NOAA Fisheries so that we can get expert knowledge in there about entanglement, but also about she put us in touch with the right people for getting the correct language in there about best practices for wildlife viewing. And it was like that with DEC for air quality and Fish and Wildlife Service for certain endangered species and whatnot. So again, just plugging that best management practices and thanking Barb for helping us make it happen.
Yeah, thanks. Great. So unlike some people, I brought notes to make sure I keep on time. But I did want to say, thank you so much. We're really glad to be here and present information on our Marine Mammal Stranding program, leading up to some questions that have been asked or maybe thought, and this is exactly the information I want to collect. But we're happy to meet with you all. You guys are the ones that live here, you play here, you work here, and here is Prince William Sound, and it's you are the ears and the eyes of this large coastal area, and we want to better understand what's happening with our animal populations, marine mammal populations, with our oceans, and through our Marine Mammal Stranding program, with your photos, with your reports, and sometimes we can come out and collect samples. We can all learn together. Oh, I forgot to ask about this. I am with NOAA Fisheries, and our Marine Mammal Stranding response staff are located in the Anchorage field office and in the Juneau regional office. And Mandy, our stranding coordinator, is on the left. There's Kim, Sadie, and myself. As you know, there are few roads in Alaska, and there are a few locations throughout the state where people regularly visit our beaches and regularly see our coastline and where we might have stranded animals on shore. Prince William Sound is a vast area with relatively few reports, actually, of stranded animals. So we're another reason why we're so happy to talk to people who are out here on the waters. NOAA relies heavily on the boaters, captains, pilots, communities to report marine mammal strandings, especially outside of our large cities and our large towns. We have our stranding network is comprised of dedicated professionals and volunteers across the state. Those that have stranding agreements with NOAA Fisheries, and those are identified here with the stars, ensure that all response activities are performed safely for both the animals and our responders. Responses are conducted under the Marine Mammal Protection Act authorization, and I was glad to see some of that language as well as the guidelines on a presentation earlier. And those that MMPA authorization is issued by NOAA, and it's issued to our stranding network members through a stranding agreement or under authority exercised by local, federal, state, or tribal governments. And now, what is a stranding? A stranding occurs, of course, when a marine mammal is dead. It can be found on the beach. It can be found floating. Fresh dead animals provide fresh samples, and we learn so much from these animals. However, dead animals that are moderate to advanced decomposition, like the Stella sea lion on the upper left, we can still gather information, and we can still learn from these animals as well. So they're important to us, and sometimes it might be just a number, sometimes it might be just bones, or what's left of what you think is a marine mammal, and that's informative to us as well. Marine mammal stranding response on dead animals. When the animal is a fresh dead animal, that's the best. We will try to get to a necropsy on that animal. That's an autopsy. And then our intent is to determine the cause of death. Why did that animal die? Was it human interaction? Was it disease? Was it some other cause or reason? Samples have been collected, and that'll help us. We can go out and collect samples. It'll help us to get the cause of death determination. And again, just even if we can't make the cause of death, we can actually get some information on the animal's health. If it's a less fresh animal, we'll still collect the samples. These samples may help us with determining the cause of death, but again, they'll provide us some life history information. Sometimes it's reproduction, sometimes it's diet, sometimes it's disease or infections. Advanced decomposition will still come out and be interested and want to get some information from those animals, and that tends to be sometimes hard parts, but that can provide age. We can get some basic health information, possibly identify injuries, and maybe it's sex. Another thing that we work with people is maybe with authorization from nymphs. If you guys see an animal in a remote area, if you can tie it ashore, then of course we're not going to worry about the tides, and we can make an effort to get out there. Another type of stranding is alive, those that are alive. These animals are usually unable to return to the water. They're beached or mass strandings that sometimes occur. You'll read about them in Cape Cod. You can see them in Cook Inlet at low tide in the mud flats when belugas live strand there. Animal needs medical attention. Sea Life Center gave a presentation earlier. That's a lot of times is the sick seal pups or those that are abandoned, and Sea Life Center can pick them up and or work with you to collect them, and then they'll care for them. Animals that are unable to return to the natural habitat without assistance. And we work with boaters. It was just a rescue of killer whales that were stuck in a marine lake, Barnes Lake in Southeast. And through assistance from the community and with NOAA and some other folks from outside, we were able to get the animals outside of that lake, and they have been photographed and identified in Canada, so they're healthy again. Dealing with live stranding response, again, we're dealing primarily in the springtime with seal pups. These are abandoned or they're sick. We usually ask that the pups be monitored for about 24 hours or more. If the pup is confirmed to be abandoned by its mom, then we'll work with the Sea Life Center to have that collected and brought into Seward for rehabilitation. And hopefully after it gets older, and as you saw with her presentation, it can be released when it's healthy. There are occasional live whales that strand on the beach or on the mud flats, and these whales are usually monitored until the next tide. Very limited options with them. One thing too that John just talked about is entanglements. And one thing we see a lot, and we really want documentation of. A lot is a relative term in the Southeast particularly, but there's actually a report of an entangled Steller sea lion in Kodiak right now. So these pinnipeds are inquisitive, and they'll get wrapped in fishing gear or marine debris. They'll also, of course, go after hooks, going after bait fish. Whales can get entangled in fishing gear and some of the marine debris, and sometimes this is life-threatening. And of course, what we'd like is for photos and reports of these animals, and that will help us. And then, of course, we can work with you to help the animals. And here's an example. We've used this a lot, and if you've seen it, I apologize, but it's really, it's a picture is 1,000 words. This is about quick reporting. This was a female stranded beluga that was first photographed on a Sunday. That's when the pilot saw it, and it was not in a popular area. We got the report on a Tuesday. We were able to get a fisherman to tie it up on a Wednesday, and we got to the animal on a Thursday. This was in September, so I am stunned by the change on the condition of this animal because it's not hot. There's really not warm, sunny days. It was cool, sunny days. But in 4 days, it went from a code 1-2 to a code 4. So it kind of the more samples are collected, the more information we can find out about the animal and its health and possibly cause of death. But coming in a little bit later, we got a whole lot less information. And here's a couple of pictures that have talked about some of the earlier talks with the increased water temperatures and increased algal toxins in the Alaska waters. And if you look at that picture with the pink water, that shows the sea surface temperature above normal during 2019 sampling season. And those higher waters included Prince William Sound. Higher temperatures included Prince William Sound. And then that map on the green upper left on the green, that shows the level of algal toxins, the domoic acid and the saxitoxins that are detected in Alaska in 13 species of marine mammals. And it includes, this was samples through 2016, and includes samples that tested positive in Prince William Sound. Those are the gray whales, humpback whales, sea otters, and stellar sea lions. And I just want to show kind of a statewide list of necropsies that have been conducted. There are 12 species that were necropsied and or sampled in the recent past. Many of these species can be found in Prince William Sound, but of course not the ribbon or the ring seals. They were found up north. And this is tremendous value in understanding animal health, animal populations, ocean conditions, ocean health, and other concerns by examining these marine mammals. We're finding out so much from these necropsies that are being conducted statewide. And as you guys know, you're not that far from Anchorage, where we have some vet pathologists, veterinarian folks that work with us for these necropsies, and could be somewhat accessed. Okay. Samples are collected during these necropsies and sent to the experts. They're sent for analysis on histopathology, life history, microbiology, parasitology, toxicology, virology, and actually my favorite is archival, because we'll get samples today and maybe there'll be something that can be tested at a later date. And we've already done that with some of our samples with the whole PFAS and fire retardant chemicals. That wasn't tested in the 80s and 90s, but it's being tested now. So archiving is a good way to keep sure we're going to know what happened in the past and know what's going on in the future. I did want to show, I'm very proud of this, these success of this marine mammal stranding network, with the reports of the stranding marine mammals, with our necropsies and sampling teams, and the analysis conducted. We're getting a lot of publications. We're getting a better understanding of these animals, reproduction, health, contaminants, and other things too. And this is a short list of reports that have been published. We have more in the works, and of course, I encourage you, more stranded animals will provide us more information. One thing too that I wanted to bring up is the branded stellar sea lions. You guys might see this just as you're boating around. They usually can be healthy, they can be swimming, they can be hauled out. Some endangered stellar sea lions were branded at 6 rookeries, and nearly all brands are on the left side of these stellar sea lions. These rookeries are located in the Aleutians, Kodiak Island, around Kodiak Island, Resurrection Bay, and there were 2 sites here in Prince William Sound, Fish Island and Seal Rocks. So if you see these and you want to take a picture, or again, keeping your 100-yard distance, this would be a value of the date and location, and they can tell you the history of this animal. Another one, too, that's of interest is unusual sightings. Pictures are requested that will help document their range and the species ID, especially if it's not familiar to you. And sometimes, as you know, with humpbacks and killer whales, we can actually identify the individual animal. There's a bowhead whale in that upper right, an Arctic species. It's a young bowhead that was found and just photographed this spring in Sitka. And through the photos, it was identified as a bowhead. Otherwise, it just looked like a large whale. There's northern fur seal pups that were found in Haines and in Sitka, too, sometimes unusual. Recently, a Pacific white-sided dolphin was found and confirmed with photographs in Valdez. That just happened this spring as well. And then, of course, you have turtles, alive and dead, have been reported in Middleton Island and different islands in Prince William Sound, but it seems to be infrequent. And I thought they were unusual until I was quoted as that in the paper, and then I heard from people saying, no, I see them all the time. So if we get that information, we'll be able to document it and keep track of it. So please, I did want to say, giving out phone numbers, but this is similar to the one John had too. If you want to call our hotline, you can report strandings, alive or dead marine mammals. You can report branded stellar sea lions. You can report entangled pinnipeds and or whales at this number, and we'll call John about the whales. You can report sightings of unusual animals. And if you can, without endangering yourself, provide photos and of course a location. A lot of people take a picture of their GPS instrument to tell us where it is or where they are when their photo is taken. And the reason is, of course, we'll try to do necropsies, there's rehabilitation, and then that those arrows show entanglements. So the idea is, reaching out to this great area that is Prince William Sound, and you guys are seeing so much and knowing so much, and I'm envious. It's always been I've been out here a few times and I love it. And just as a sidebar too, we did have a team out here, I think just last week, necropsying a humpback whale at Squirrel Island, or nearby Squirrel Island, which I just know is that away, I think. But anyway, I can be done, and I think Bonnie's coming up next for her wonderful talk.
Hey, hi, I'm Bonnie Easley-Appleyard. I work with Barb Mahoney at NOAA Fisheries in the Anchorage office. And I'm here to talk about responsible marine mammal viewing practices. So whether you are a whale watching company, a recreational boater, a concerned citizen, a beachcomber, we have many different ways that you can help protect and conserve our marine mammals. And Barb and I brought several outreach materials at the back of the room, and feel free to grab some. A lot of the information that I'm covering today is in those materials, as well as like a little like business card size thing with the stranding number. So if you were marking that down and you want one for your wallet. Okay, so this is actually just covering one of our main brochures here, the Marine Mammal Viewing Guidelines. That was also brought up earlier with the best management practices. That's available at the back of the room. But first I want to dive into the two main U.S. federal regulations that protect marine mammals. It's the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act. So all marine mammals are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And any marine mammal that's listed as threatened or endangered under the Endangered Species Act is also has some additional protections. So in Alaska, there's actually another regulation under the Marine Mammal Protection Act for Alaska humpback whales that makes it unlawful for a person to approach within 100 yards of a humpback whale. So both the MMPA and the ESA prohibit take. And typically when we think of take, we think of capturing, injury, mortality. But take under both of these acts includes harassment. So if you're changing marine mammal's behavior, you're actually doing something against the law. So that's why these marine mammal viewing guidelines are really important, because it helps reduce your chances of harassing a marine mammal. So what do you do when whales are around? First of all, you have to know that there are whales around. So here are just a few surface behaviors that can indicate that you have some whales around, a blow, a pectoral fin, maybe a breach. Pretty familiar with all of these. So then what do you do when the whales are around? Well, as I mentioned, there is the federal humpback whale approach regulations under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and so do not approach within 100 yards of a humpback whale, which is approximately 8 school buses in length. And you don't want to place your vessel in the path of oncoming whales, so that would create them to surface within that 100 yards. And again, you just can't disturb them in their normal behavior, what they were doing prior to you showing up in the location. So additionally, you can help reduce your likelihood of harassing whales by following these tips. You want to limit your viewing time to 30 minutes. Keep a wide berth, especially when there's other vessels in the area. Get on your VHF radio and let other boaters know that there's whales in the area. I was in Seward last summer and just saw some people plowing through this group of killer whales just because they didn't know. So, let other boaters know. And then go slow when approaching and departing from any whales. And finally, give moms and calves extra space and groups, especially if you see bubble net feeding going on. And so all of this material that I just covered is in this handy little brochure that we've created. It's our Give Whales Bubble Room campaign, and we have some of those flyers at the back of the room. They're also, you can download this from our website. So what about seals and sea lions then? So in general, for all marine mammals, we recommend that you stay that 100 yards away. And with seals, actually, though, in glacier fjords, you want to stay 500 yards away. The thing is, though, is these animals actually can be disturbed at greater distances. So you want to watch and see what their behavior is. And so if you're seeing any sign of disturbance or aggravation, you want to move away. Same kind of thing with seals and sea lions. You want to minimize your wake, avoid abrupt changes in course, and then also avoid loud noises near seals. And keep your pets on leashes, especially around when you see seals and sea lions. As mentioned earlier, I think with the Alaska Sea Lion Center presentation, you want to make sure that you're keeping your distance so that mom can actually return to his pup. So what else can you do besides practice good marine mammal viewing guidelines? Well, it's also illegal to feed marine mammals, as you might expect, and there's good reason for that. This can cause habituation and aggression, which isn't good for the animals or humans. Educate others about the negative impacts of feeding marine mammals, and then keep your docks clean, your boat clean. Do not leave whole fish or discarded fish pieces where it could attract or marine mammals could get it. And then entanglement. Here we are again. So we use a lot of materials these days that can entangle marine mammals, and especially every year we see many seals and sea lions unnecessarily suffering or dying from entangled marine debris. And I want to point out the one on the right here, because it's not one you would necessarily think of, but those flying discs, you throw your dog, your children throws it too far, and now it's lost. And if it's not solid, it can now become an entanglement hazard. And we've been seeing an increase in these as part of entanglements in recent years. So what can you do? Responsibly stowing and disposing of your materials. Prevent nooses by cutting any loops before discarding in the trash. Keep plastic and other discards out of the ocean. And then reduce, reuse, recycle. We're creating marine debris. We can also stop it, right? So let's do our part. So I want to shift gears here for a moment and talk about Whale Sense. It's a voluntary program for commercial whale watching companies that NOAA puts on with several partners. And it's for operators that advertise whale watching as part of their services can join Whale Sense. As I mentioned, Whale Sense is a voluntary program. It was developed in collaboration with the whale watching industry on the East Coast and then came to Alaska and started up in Juneau in 2015. And Whale Sense recognizes companies committed to responsible marine mammal viewing practices. And currently in South Central Alaska, we have 8 operators in Seward, a part of the Whale Sense program, 1 in Valdez, and we have 23 operators in Southeast Alaska. And the picture here is of the 3 coordinators in Alaska. I'm the Whale Sense coordinator for South Central Alaska, and then Susie Tierlink and Carly Lowell. I work with the coordinators for Southeast Alaska for different geographical areas. So let's dive a little bit more into Whale Sense. These are our 5 guidelines that our whale sense companies follow. So stick to whale watching guidelines. All those ones that we were covering, those marine mammal viewing guidelines, we want our companies to stick to that. Also, our whale sense operators educate passengers and their crew about the guidelines, why they're in place, how we protect our marine environment. And then notify officials of whales in trouble, just what Barb and John had covered, and set an example for other boaters. And finally, encourage ocean stewardship. So we'll dive into this just a little bit deeper. As I mentioned, they need to implement marine mammal viewing guidelines anytime they're out on the water. And this, one of the things we do to check on this is we do incognito ride-along, just to make sure that we're on the same page with the whale sense companies, that they're understanding the marine mammal viewing guidelines. So we do those as well. And then we also require annual training for crew, for captains and naturalists. And actually, this is an underestimate. I think the other day I looked, this year we've already trained over 300 people across Alaska for this summer season. We also require that whale sense operators have a conservation message on their tour. And they do an annual stewardship project. So that could be a beach cleanup. We've had companies eliminate single-use plastics on their tours. Lots of great projects that our companies are doing. We ask that they have responsible advertising, so just making sure that what they're putting out on their website or their brochures is not setting expectations different than what they should expect. So getting too close to whales. And then finally, promoting the Whale Sense program on the website as well as during their tours. So if you're not a part of Whale Sense or a whale watching company, we also have another program, which is our Whale Sense Proud Supporters. So this is for businesses and organizations not directly whale watching, but are interested in educating visitors and the public about the Whale Sense program and the responsible wildlife viewing practices. So if you're interested in joining Whale Sense or the Proud Supporters, you can reach out to me. I left some business cards at the back of the room with our outreach materials. You can also Google and find my information online. So real quick, I just wanted to tag 3 things on Cook Inlet belugas, because I know many of you drive from here to Anchorage. And so if you see belugas, let us know. We want to know about any sightings of belugas. This is different than what Barb was saying. We also want to hear if they're in Whittier. We do have a report of beluga. I don't know if it's a Cook Inlet beluga in Whittier last year. So let us know if you see belugas. And then the Alaska Beluga Monitoring Partnership is a community science monitoring program. You get trained up and then you can go and monitor for a couple of hours at any of our stations that are along Turnagain Arm, as well as elsewhere in Cook Inlet, looking for belugas. And then finally, Belugas Count is an event that occurs in September every year. I think this is the 6th year, minus some COVID years, right? That we're going to be putting it on. It'll be September 21st. Again, there will be stations along Turnagain Arm as well as Cook Inlet. There's also an event in Anchorage. So with that, tried to get through that, catch up on time a little bit. I just want to say thank you for having us today. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or I don't know if we have a moment now.
Thank you, Bonnie. Yeah. Let's try, we have time for one question for Bonnie or Barbara. Oh, good. Yeah, thanks, Alan.
A question from online. Do you go aboard vessels incognito only on Whale Sense companies or other operators as well?
We only go on Whale Sense companies at this point. I do know that sometimes our law enforcement, which is a different division, will sometimes go on other vessels, but for the whale sense program, we only go on whale sense operating companies.
Because indeed. The interest in beluga count,
Yeah.
it seems there's a pretty big interest in it. Is that because the numbers are down?
Yeah, that is part of it. I mean, there's only about 331 cook inlet belugas left. So, yeah, we want to know, the thing is we can do surveys, right? Like John was talking about the humpback surveys, but we can't always be out there, right? We only get these snapshots in time. And so the more information we can get from public that just are naturally out there, the more information that we learn over time. Thank you.